Pineapple Media Podcast Network presents This is Protecting America. Now, here's Emmy-winning journalist Rita Cosby.
And welcome to another edition of Protecting America. I'm Rita Cosby. Everybody is talking about the very troubling disappearance of 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie, the mother of Today Show host Savannah Guthrie. And joining us now to discuss this case is James Gagliano, a former FBI Supervisory Agent and a security and law enforcement analyst. James, it's great to have you here. I just have to start where everybody's wondering, where does the case go from here, James?
Well, I'll tell you what, Rita, this case, it's gotten more beguiling and more confusing and more unusual by the day. It seems like every day we have a confusing set of facts that are being set out, and it's easy as a former law enforcement agent to, kind of dissect things from the comfort of your own home and say, well, you should do this or you should do that. But I think the messaging, I think they would agree, the Pima County Sheriff's Office and the FBI, which has obviously gotten much more involved of late, would agree that the messaging has not been spot on. Look, the FBI has been working kidnappings going back to the Lindbergh baby kidnapping in 1932, and celebrity kidnappings like the Lindbergh baby. I think Frank Sinatra Jr. in 1963. They're not common, but they do happen. Remember, kidnappings are for one of two reasons. They're either for profit or they're for revenge. And in this case, we haven't even really gotten a clear answer as to whether or not Mrs. Guthrie was targeted because of her daughter's fame and being a public person and a prominent newscaster. We don't know that for sure. So it's interesting right now, and the information that was shared today at the press conference where the sheriff of Pima County made certain to suggest that no one is beyond being a suspect right now. They haven't ruled anybody out, and that's usual in these kind of situations where, the family is the first place that you look in something like this. But I got to tell you, Rita, this one doesn't check the normal boxes, and I've worked a lot of kidnappings across my career. This one really is one of the most unusual I've ever seen.
You touched on family. I found it interesting. In the press conference, the sheriff was asked, and he gave a lot of detail about a lot of different things, James. You and I have covered cases for years, and he seemed very specific on certain things. Okay, here's the time that the cameras were ripped out. And then he was asked, explain who dropped off the mother. Was it the daughter or was it the daughter's husband or somebody else? And he said, all I can say essentially is it was family. It was odd that he didn't kind of say, well, it was the daughter or it was so-and-so. Why is that?
Well, I'll say this, covering politician. Sheriffs are elected officials, and that's not to besmirch or malign a sheriff's service. There are outstanding sheriffs out there. I'm just surprised that somebody in the business like that and somebody who is a politician, that they have not worked better on the messaging. Rita, from the perspective in the law that precision of language is everything. And if you put something out or you leave something critical out, what happens to the online sleuths and the public at large? They run with it. And that's where I think there's been some problems with things being put out. Well, we didn't say that there was forced entry, but who said that? Well, we didn't say that the Ring doorbell was forcibly removed, and they keep walking things back. And I get it. It's a race against time, and I'm not being overly hyperbolic. This is an 84-year-old elderly woman who obviously is in need of medication to stay alive, and she's outside the window of needing that medication. So people are working around the clock right now to try to come in home. But Rita, seeing the blood spatter that the sheriff did confirm today that was on the porch, it does belong to Mrs. Guthrie. That suggests to me and to anybody with half a brain that there was a violent struggle, possibly inside the house. The blood belongs to her, and then she's dragged and put into a car, quite possibly, and then taken somewhere else. And the fact that the kidnappers have not chosen to make any communication with the family. I mean, just tonight, the brother, Savannah's brother, made another online video appeal. I think it was on Instagram, Fox just reported. And last night, who could not have, witnessed Savannah's, gut-wrenching, tear-jerking appeal to please just, make contact with us. Please just reach out to us. And the fact that that hasn't happened suggests to me that, maybe we're in a situation right now where, harm could have come to her. And maybe the kidnappers, something happened, and they decided now they were going to try to extract some money. And obviously the way to do things now is through email and through cryptocurrency and to try to cover your tracks. And they are not in a position to give any proof of life, which suggests to me that this case may not work out how we're all praying and hoping it does.
If you're thinking about changing schools, why wait? At Manhattan University, love those guys. You don't have to start over. With transfer-friendly pathways, your credits count, and you keep moving forward. From day one, you're part of Jasper Nation, preparing for the real world. And with New York City just a train away, opportunity is everywhere. Ready to move forward without missing a step? Visit manhattan.edu/transfer and enroll today. Manhattan University. Don't start over, move forward.
Yeah, it's so heartbreaking to hear all these details, and you're right, it's so troubling. What do you make of the ransom notes that were sent to TMZ, James Gagliano, and the local CBS affiliate and another location, but not sent to NBC, where Savannah Guthrie is a high-profile host there of the Today Show? So why send it, do you think, to those locations? And it seems like the FBI is giving validity to some of these notes because they talked about money, they talked about the Apple Watch, also the fact that they're floodlights, some things that sort of pinpoint some knowledge of her in the house.
Yeah, so that establishes the credibility of the hostage taker. So the fact that they knew something or provided something in those emails that suggested that you would had to have been there at the scene in the house to know this, and that lends credibility to the fact that hey, this is somebody that at least had some knowledge of this abduction. Now, again, they haven't confirmed. Was this targeted? If it was targeted, you would think the normal way this would be done is that they would contact her through NBC. But also, they haven't ruled out the fact that what if this was random? The neighborhood, it's not, the houses aren't mansions. It's a well-to-do neighborhood about 60 or 70 miles north of the Mexican border. It's a beautiful area. But I'll give you two other things when you talk about the law of unintended consequences. Out west, because we do the same thing here in New York, we moved to try to do away with light pollution. So there's a thing called the Dark Skies Initiative. And out west, where you get those beautiful sunsets and you want to see all the stars at night, there's no light pollution. Well, that's a good thing for the flora and the fauna and for the people that like to sit on their back porch, but it has made it exponentially more difficult. None of the Ring doorbells at any of the other locations in and around Miss Guthrie's home could pick up a good image because it was so dark. Arizona also is one of the states, and I don't know what the numbers are. I should know this, but I don't know what the numbers are. But they're a state that only requires one license plate on your vehicle. So even if they got an image of a vehicle and the plate was on the rear and they saw the front, police wouldn't be able to pull a license plate off of it. The fact that they haven't put out any still images, no digital exhaust, nothing, no pictures or persons of interest or shadowy figure, that looks like Bigfoot, but something to try to, share with the public and crowdsource, it tells me they're struggling right now in leads. And that's no fault of theirs. I know that they're doing the best they can. The president has announced that he's, turning over, every bit of federal resources to possibly help out in this case. And lastly, it's a double-edged sword for the family. If this was me or you, this case would not be on the front page of the newspaper like this. It wouldn't be getting this kind of just round-the-clock coverage. So that is a benefit to Savannah Guthrie's celebrity. The other part of it is they now have to watch this all play out on TV, and that's the curse of it. So such a tough situation for the family right now. My heart goes out to them. I know yours does too. I cannot imagine what they're going through. And I've dealt with families of people that were kidnapped overseas and here. It's always gut-wrenching, especially if you don't get a safe recovery of the family member.
What do you make also, and I know Savannah too, Steve, we started in network television around the same time, so this is very personal. It's very heartbreaking to hear. We're looking at all of this stuff here, James, and we're looking at sort of all the layers. What do you make of the fact that they have a bit of a timeline? How helpful is that? It seems like it's a 41-minute sort of time zone there where the cameras were ripped out and then going to where it looks like the pacemaker was taken off coordinating with the app. So in other words, that seems like that's when she was abducted. It seems like there's a window of when somebody could have come in, likely, and they saw a shadowy figure or some sort of movement detected. It seems like a human sort of movement right around the same time. But it seems like it's narrowed the gap there, James, to 41 minutes.
Yeah, and again, you and I are doing the same thing here. We're just looking at what's been released, and we're putting on our caps of experience, and we're trying to say, we've seen this before. This is similar to this, and we're trying to do like inferential analysis here. I'm almost more surprised at some of the things that haven't been released. Why didn't they say that there was, or acknowledge it, or disavow it, that there was a forced entry there? We don't know. And I'm guessing they do, and there's a reason why, and I, for the life of me, don't know what it is, why they have not acknowledged. Was this person or people? Were they waiting inside the house when she got home, or did they forcibly enter the home after she was already there? And again, they've got a pretty solid timeline there. But things complicate when you're in a rural area like that. You got the expanse of the desert all around them. You're 60 miles from the Mexican border. So, you talk about somebody, having avenues to get out of there and go a long way away. It's heart-wrenching, I know, but I have a bad feeling from the perspective as you start looking at all these things and the days go by. If somebody isn't recovered in the first day or the first 48 hours, the statistics always suggest that it's much, much less chance that that's going to happen. In this case, I hope it has a good ending, but with what we know right now, it does not look like we're headed to a successful conclusion.
What do you make of the emotional videos, especially the first one that we saw with Savannah sitting there with her brother and also the sister? How much work went into that video? Obviously, personally, I can't even imagine just how difficult that must have been for all of them, wondering and pleading, for their mother to come home, but also talking to the alleged kidnappers too. How much effort, I guess, and how much help went into the FBI's work with them for that moment? Because they obviously use certain language, certain phrases that I'm sure behavioral experts said that's the key. That's a good phrase to use. That'll target them.
Yeah, you're nailing it right there. Now, and this is important for your listeners to understand, is that the FBI, law enforcement writ large, but the FBI who handles kidnappings, I wouldn't say routinely, but it is one of the violations that we do work. They can't command a family to do this or not to do that. We can't say don't pay a ransom. We can't say don't communicate with the kidnappers. If we are asked to assist, that's certainly what we do. And in this instance, it's different because oftentimes the kidnappers do not want law enforcement to know about it, and they'll threaten the family through the fact that they have a captive hostage that belongs to the family. They'll threaten the family, if you go to law enforcement, this is going to happen. And, that makes it really, really tough because you're trying to work with the family, you're trying to advise, but you're also trying not to have the kidnappers know that that's going on. In this instance, it's different. It became public very, very, very soon, and it was announced right away that the sheriff's office had the lead on this in Pima County, and then it was announced that the FBI was coming in. So Yes, listening to the things that Savannah, as heart-wrenching as was to listen to her, to have to go through that. But yes, she would have met with FBI agents and people that do this. There's the hostage negotiators in the FBI. They're part of the crisis negotiation unit, and they are specialists. They're specialists in things called active listening skills. So let's say you do get a hostage taker on the phone and you are able to talk to them. They have ways of extracting information. They have ways of calming a person down. They have ways of, you're basically playing for time to keep the hostage alive until you can either get the hostage released, or in the case of what I used to do, being a member of the FBI's hostage rescue team, you would go in with a tactical resolution and go get the hostage. So, I don't know where we are in this process right now, obviously, because I'm not inside the investigation. But just the more I hear from the authorities, it just seems like they're just dealing with a lack of leads right now, and that's the toughest part of this.
Yeah, it sure is. Well, we are praying for a safe return of beautiful Nancy Guthrie, and obviously the whole world's been praying for that. Let's hope that there's a happy ending here. Everybody, be sure to subscribe and share to this podcast. James Gagliano, thank you. Really important to hear your great insight on this case. And again, let's pray that there's some good news soon.
Absolutely. And thanks for having me, Rita.
And everybody, I'll be back soon with another great edition of Protecting America. And of course, you can catch me every weeknight, 10 p.m. to midnight on the legendary WABC Radio. This is Rita Cosby, and thanks for all you do to protect America.